I would use this as an opportunity to reduce, or in some cases, Taiwan, Vietnam, European Union, go to zero reciprocal tariffs.
The administration will get deals done with the vast majority of countries, and tariff barriers will come down.
Let Scott Bessent, who I think is a professional, negotiate. And I know Japan's here. I gather Korea, Vietnam have called, and then eventually Europe. Get those things done quickly. Settle down, take a deep breath, negotiate some trade deals. That's the best thing they can do.
Okay, so yesterday, the tariffs were needed to bring back a manufacturing renaissance in this country. And now, all these experts are saying we don't need them. And it sounds like the White House is saying, I don't know, maybe, okay. So which is it? So let's say we make these unbelievable great deals on these tariffs with all these countries. Would love to see that happen. What happens to this commitment to manufacturing? What are we going to do with all the interviews we've watched in the last week of Scott Bessent telling us that all the federal workers who are fired, they can go work in manufacturing? Howard Lutnick talking to us about all the people who are going to be screwing screws in iPhones again, the robots that would come. What happens to that narrative?
Well, here's the beauty of it, Stephanie. If they do strike all these deals, I can assure you, you'll see Donald Trump promoting the idea that these deals will bring manufacturing back, of course. But that takes a lot of time, right? That's a years and years down the road situation for factories to be invested in, built, so on and so forth. That's going to be something that outlives Donald Trump's presidency. So he'll have the ability to talk it up as, hey, this is coming down the pipeline. Don't worry, it's going to be like years down the road. And it's not going to be something that he's going to have to show immediate returns on, right?
Okay, but these very same people who are so excited about this manufacturing renaissance over the last 4 years, I don't know, when we talked about opening up chips manufacturing plants and battery factories, I didn't hear from one single one of those people who were excited about it.
Yeah, I mean, you were just talking about Taiwan and, like, the CHIPS Act. The CHIPS Act was intentionally trying to bring that back to the United States, and Donald Trump has bashed it, right? This is manufacturing supposed to be coming to the United States. He bashed it. He and his allies keep talking about how we need to bring manufacturing back, ignoring that there was a huge surge in manufacturing construction spending in the wake of the passage of the infrastructure bill in 2021. Like, there has already been this shift that occurred largely under the Biden administration that because it was Biden has sort of been silent. I mean, I think the core thing here, we're all sort of talking around, is this is an administration full of liars. They lie all the time in order to try and backstop Donald Trump. And so they're going to say whatever they have to say in order to make Donald Trump look good on a given day. And over the course of the past week, it's been, oh, this is all intended to bring manufacturing back, when in the reality is Donald Trump is just like, let's do this thing and use this weird formula to try and impose tariffs on everybody.
Let's indulge Philippe and say it's an administration of liars. Doesn't the fact that you're going to think it's a wacky question. Isn't that reality? Doesn't it make it much easier for Wall Street to manage Donald Trump than corporate America?
Well, they just did, right? So think about that. And we know that he's a really horrible negotiator. He always shoots the hostage. We know that. We can go back to the first time around, right? And so he
was a terrible negotiator as a business person.
True. I'll just say this. You just said that, the administration are a bunch of liars. You know who are also really disingenuous? A lot of these CEOs, right? So Tim Cook, the ESG, DEI warrior, you know what I mean? He was everyone's CEO, and he was one of the first guys to announce that they were going to spend $500 billion over the next 4 years. Okay, so this was January or February of 2025. The next 4 years, very specific, right? Like you think about it, they're not going to build here. They can't. 95% of iPhones are built in China. They had an exemption in the first Trump administration, with China, their ability to kind of bring the phones in. They just can't reorient their supply chains like that. Tim Cook, who's the CEO of this company for the last 13 years, he started his career at Apple creating a supply chain, a manufacturing capability that allowed them to become, the largest market cap company in the world through their manufacturing of these devices. They have 1.5 billion iOS devices around the planet. They hope to sell hundreds of millions of phones each year. They can't do it here.
That sophisticated global supply chain is what enabled us to be such a prosperous, not just country, but world. If you ever read Phil Knight's book, Shoe Dog, you get a lesson in how clothing manufacturing happens, right? We don't mass manufacture sneakers in the United States of America. So the fact that these 10% tariffs are still going to be imposed, does the White House simply say, I don't care, those businesses aren't going to go under with a 10% tariff, and we're going to bring some more dollars in the door for the government? Is that their thought?
It's It's significantly higher than before. Of course, it's still a big deal, but there's another level.
But not as big of a deal as 40%, 60%.
I guess it's less of a noogie, sure. But like, there's another incoherence from the administration here, which is that the global financial system rests on top of the global trade system. So the only reason we're able to consume all of these things that give us our trade deficit is that we borrow lots and lots of money from everywhere in the world. So if we want to change those deficits, right? If we want to run a trade surplus, we have to stop borrowing money. There's no political constituency for that whatsoever. The other part of that is, if we want to do that, we have to let the dollar get cheaper. The dollar is still the strong dollar that we had in the 90s. Not much has changed there. And there's some people within the administration who are talking to manufacturers who want a weak dollar, and it's Wall Street that wants the strong dollar. They make the most money off of the strong dollar, and we found out today who he's listening to. The strong dollar isn't going anywhere, and if it doesn't go anywhere, we're not going to change any of these trade relationships.
Well, let's talk about the other thing that Donald Trump, I'm going to say did for Wall Street this morning. On Twitter, he puts out a tweet this morning that says, buy the market. Stocks are
Now's
cheap.
a good time.
DJT, right? What happens 2-3 hours later? He makes the pause announcement and the market rallies 3,000 points. I'm not accusing anyone of insider trading. But on any earth that I have lived on before now, that would warrant some sort of investigation by the SEC of who knew what when in the administration, who bought what when. Given who's in this administration, given who's running the SEC, it's unlikely to happen. But come on now.
Wait. The SEC that was put under control of the White House? I mean, like, this is, the grift has gone on and on. We saw it,
But, Dan, this one's a crazy one.
Oh, it is. I mean, but, listen, I just bumped into a guy at dinner. Okay, and he's a prominent hedge fund manager, and the guy's been on the street for decades, and he's been very successful, and he doesn't want to speak out. There's fear of retribution,
of these
folks, and that's why we're all being really careful. And if you say noogie one more time, I'm going to give you a wedgie. All right, like so. My point is like there's a lot of that out there. So we're not going to make those sorts of accusations against folks, and it seems very likely that kind of happened. But one thing is really important. A lot of us think that it's Wall Street traders that are going out there and buying stock and buying calls. It's these algorithms that are doing it, right? And it doesn't take a whole heck of a lot, to kind of move markets once you have a material change to the mood that was existing in real news or so. So, there might have been people trading off that. There's a lot of leaks in administrations like that. But at the end of the day, this was coiled spring as you think about the market. The sentiment was so bad, and it didn't take a whole heck of a lot to get things going to the upside.
And we saw that with that Besant situation a couple days ago when it was like the rumor that there was going to be a pause and the market shot up.
Okay, but did you ever start to wonder, hold on a second. Sure. So the supposedly, fake tweet goes out 2 days ago that says, oh, we're going to have a 90-day pause. And then quickly the White House says, no, that's not true. I don't know. Is there any credence to, could that have been their dry run? Could that have been their test case to say, well, if we do a pause, what does it do to the market? And there we are this morning in absolute disaster mode. And they say, oh, we can pull that rabbit out of our hat. We know what the market will do.
But they can't, because nobody will believe them the next time. You can't keep jacking tariffs up if people know that you have a pain point where you're going to drop them back down. It won't work again, not the way it did this time.
So the thing is, I think there's many people on Wall Street who never thought these tariffs would actually be imposed. Correct. And the market would have gone down significantly further if there was a lot more buy-in that this was really going to happen. Right? Like the markets took a terrible dive, but it would have been a lot worse if a lot of people on Wall Street thought, actually, this is seriously going to happen. And right up until today, there were a ton of people who clearly, based on how trading was going, were still thinking this isn't actually going to happen. Even after today was the day they were getting imposed. Even after that point, nope.
Well, guess what?
We think it'll be pulled back.
They're still there for quite a few countries. We didn't even get to talk about China, and I'm not saying China's a friend, but this thing is going to remain complicated. Everyone is staying put. When we return, Donald Trump changing the topic, sics the Department of Justice on two of his old enemies. We're going to break down his latest effort for revenge. That's next.
Bipolar 1 can overwhelm your mind. Sometimes depressive lows and unpredictable highs can make it hard to get out of your head. Finding relief may help you break through. Ask about Vraylar. Some medicines only treat the lows or highs. Vraylar treats depressive, acute manic, and mixed episodes of bipolar 1 in adults. Proven full-spectrum relief for all bipolar 1 symptoms.
Vraylar isn't approved for elderly patients with dementia-related psychosis due to increased risk of death or stroke. Report changes in behavior or suicidal thoughts to your doctor. Antidepressants can increase these in children and young adults. Report fever, stiff muscles, or confusion, which may be life-threatening, or uncontrolled muscle movements, which may be permanent. High blood sugar, which can lead to coma or death, weight gain, and high cholesterol may occur. Difficulty moving, tremors, slow or uncontrolled body movements, restlessness and feeling like you need to move, sleepiness, nausea, vomiting, and indigestion are common. Side effects may not appear for weeks.
Vraylar, breaking through to relief. Ask about Vraylar.
My wife Gina was born to be a chef. Exploring new foods is her passion. But diabetes threatened to take that all away. Then, Gina got Dexcom G7. Now she can see how food affects her sugar levels in real time. With Dexcom G7, she doesn't have to choose between the foods that she loves and her health. I can't wait to see what she creates next.
You know it's gonna be good.
Got one more, Antoine.
With USPS Ground Advantage, it's like you're with us every step of the way.
Right on time.
Stay in the know from your dock to their door.
You want high-performance, long-lasting, affordable tools. You want Harbor Freight tools. Whatever you do, do it for less at Harbor Freight. Save like never before at Spring Black Friday.
This is what joint pain looks like when you keep moving with Aleve. Just one Aleve, 12 hours of uninterrupted joint pain relief. Aleve, strength to last 12 hours.
Power E-Trade's award-winning trading app makes trading easier. With its customizable options chain, easy-to-use tools, and paper trading to help sharpen your skills, you can stay on top of the market from wherever you are. E-Trade from Morgan Stanley. Power E-Trade's easy-to-use tools make complex trading less complicated. Custom scans help you find new trading opportunities, while an earnings tool helps you plan your trades and stay on top of the market. E-Trade from Morgan Stanley.
I told you I don't need these anymore. I have Sling.
Okay, morning. I only let Sling deliver the news I need to stay informed. Thank you very much.
Nice one.
Nope. Sling gives us all the news we want in a quick and reliable manner.
And at a wonderful price.
This critical time calls for the critical news coverage that Sling provides.
Okay, see you tomorrow.
The most important news at the best price. Sling lets you do that.
DealDash.com. Online auctions since 2009. This PlayStation 5 sold for only 50 cents. This iPad Pro sold for less than $34. And this Nintendo Switch sold for less than $20. Go to DealDash.com and see how much you can save.
Struggling to find the perfect plants? Fast Growing Trees makes it easy. Get expert advice, order from home, and shop thousands of fruit trees, privacy trees, shrubs, and more delivered to your door. Save 15% on your dream yard at Fast Growing Trees with code TREES.
Introducing Mando Whole Body Deodorant. It's clinically proven to block odor all day and controls odor for 72 hours. Rather than covering up BO with heavy fragrance, Mando's unique formula stops odor before it starts. That's my secret to better odor control everywhere.
Why do couples choose a Sleep Number smart bed?
I need help with their snoring.
Sleep Number does that.
Thank you.
Smart beds now start at $849.
Shop a Sleep Number store near you.
A rigged election, a badly rigged election. We did phenomenally in that election. Look what happened to our country because of it. Every day you read in the papers about more and more fraud that's discovered.
President Trump signed an executive order revoking the security clearances of his former cybersecurity head, Chris Krebs, and former Homeland Security official, Miles Taylor. He also ordered the Justice Department to review their time in government. The nightcap is still here. I don't know, Allan, for any of us, me included, who said, geez, maybe Joe Biden, reached too far, preemptively pardoning Anthony Fauci and his family members and Liz Cheney. I don't know, maybe he was right.
I mean, it's been a minute since we've had to think about Miles Taylor and Chris Krebs, right?
Yeah.
Look, this is a signal. It's the latest step in the retribution agenda, but it's a sign just as much as it is to Miles Taylor and Chris Krebs, and I can only imagine what this review might entail. It's very loosely described. I mean, we really don't know what they're trying to do, but it's also a signal to people who are working there right now, right? To not do the kinds of things that Miles Taylor did and to not be publicly countering the president in the way that Chris Krebs did after the 2020 election.
It's been so long. When I read it, I thought they were talking the actor from Top Gun, Miles Teller. I'm like, what's Trump got a problem with him for? What's your take on this whole thing?
Well, let's set Taylor aside, because Taylor, people may remember, he was the anonymous guy, and he wrote the book and so on. Let's set him aside.
But people don't remember, so tell us what he did.
Well, I mean, he worked in the national security infrastructure. He was sort of talking to reporters. He wrote a book about it. But I want to set him aside, and I want to focus on Krebs, because Krebs was tasked with ensuring that the election was safe, that it was protected primarily from foreign actors. After 2016, we saw Russia try and interfere. He did so. In the wake of the election, he said this was a secure election. And he was speaking in the context of his role, which was looking at it through an international lens. But because he said that thing, because he said it was a secure election, which, of course, it was, as 5 years of very stringent focus by Trump and his allies have proven, that there was nothing wrong with the election because they have not found a single thing. The only thing I've heard about fraud recently is that Tulsi Gabbard apparently voted in Hawaii, even though she was listed as a resident of Texas.
A truly extraordinary story that she blamed on someone else.
Yes, naturally. Yes. Right. But the fact that Donald Trump is in this moment focusing on Chris Krebs, who that was what he did, he was tasked with doing by the government, as part of a broader effort to reframe the entire 2020 election and make it the official government position that the election was stolen when, of course, it wasn't. It very much echoes what he's trying to do with January 6th, to make it the official government position that the people who committed the violent acts that day did nothing wrong. In the same way that he is trying to reverse all of these historical markers and all of these different aspects of government data and you know, any mention of diversity, he's reshaping all of what is true and real in America. I said earlier that the government was broadly dishonest, this administration, but this is how it manifests. And the fact that he's going after Chris Krebs, whose job was simply to make sure this election was secure and did so successfully, is going, I think, much further than Miles Taylor, because it is someone who wasn't even particularly negative about Trump. He was just doing his job and did it successfully, but he had the temerity to say, I did my job successfully and the election was.
But does this mean we're about to relitigate 2020's election? I mean, Trump said, quote, we would find out if 2020 was a safe election. And to Philip's last point, we all know it was.
Right. And I mean, there's no appetite right now to keep talking about the 2020 election, right?
Or is there?
Among anyone, right? I mean, Trump clearly still wants to have this out in the open. The problem is there's about 75 other things happening right now, most of which are things that he is leading on, including, you know, the entire reset of the global trade system. This stuff is just not going to break through in the same way. There's Doge. There's this. I mean, it's like on and on and on.
I disagree from the standpoint that Fox News, instead of talking about what's happening with tariffs and how Donald Trump's a total mess there, can instead talk about finally we're getting to the bottom of what happened in 2020, right?
This gives him a new narrative, and it gives him a chance to change the subject and find something to go on about because economics have been a disaster for him the last week. But this goes back to the point that you were making in the last segment. People are afraid to speak out. When we see former officials now being targeted for doing their jobs by a sitting president, what does that mean for everyone in this White House? If you take it back to what's happening on economic policy and everyone's going, oh, hope, oh, please, Scott Bessent is going to speak truth to the president of the United States. How can anyone disagree with this president, speak out internally, externally, when you know what he does?
Yeah, and it's not just, I guess, retribution from the government. I mean, you just mentioned Doge. I mean, think about Elon Musk. He's threatened to, you know, primary anybody who doesn't agree with his agenda as it relates to what he's doing there. And, you know, there's been plenty of people critical of his Tesla, of, you know, SpaceX, of, you know, all that sort of stuff. So I think it's a multi-pronged sort of attack here. And, you know, listen, we know that they've destroyed, you know, norms. They know that he doesn't care about law, the rule of law, and the Constitution. So I think you should be concerned about retribution.